Well, Jeff, just a quick reflection on the game we've seen. What did you make of your young charge?
Well, he came out firing on all fours, didn't he? You know, and he played some really good shots. Look, he's quite skillful and he's got a fantastic range of shots, you know. But I suppose, you know, he got so many of them and he was getting, I suppose, thought, well, he could do it from anywhere. And of course, he came unstuck a bit because he made a few errors in that third game, which allowed his opponent in. Although his opponent played well, he came back quite well, I thought, you know, Adam. But I was really pleased at the end for him to win, you know. But obviously, you know, you're trying to coach someone, and he was so dominant in the early stages of the match, and really should have gone on with it. I think he was up 7-3 in the third game and should have won from there. But that shows you what concentration does. And I don't think he was cocky, but you know, overconfident perhaps in what he could do. And you know, you don't get away with it most of the time.
That's youth for you, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah,
learn that part of the game too.
Look, the good thing is at least he does play a range of shots, and he loves doing that sort of thing. And I think it makes entertaining squash, to be honest. You know, he's that style of a player. You're never going to stop him doing that. Just a matter of harnessing it just a little bit and making it at the right times, and he'll do very well.
You're just going to run through your history, if we possibly can, in the next however long it takes. But
yeah, sure.
The first thing I was going to say was welcome to Invercargill, but I understand not only have you been here before, you've played here before.
Yeah,
Is that
I played
right?
at the old Victoria Club, apparently. I didn't remember exactly where it was until I came here. When I turned professional, you know, one of the ways to make a bit of dough was to go around and do exhibition matches, and I teamed up with a fellow called Kenny Hisco, a 7 times Australian champion, and we together formed a partnership. We toured the world and did a lot of things, including all over New Zealand, and we did manage to find our way down to Invercargill at some stage in the 70s.
I imagine a big crowd that day too. You probably won't specifically remember, but for that tour you're doing well supported?
Yeah, it was quite nice, you know, and it's good to think that, you know, people remember that. And yeah, look, you know, I love playing squash. I've always enjoyed it, and funny enough, some of those exhibition matches and things are good fun because you get right within and you mix it with the club members afterwards, and so you know people are enthusiastic and ask you questions. Maybe you get sick and tired of the same questions being asked, but certainly I love it when people are enthusiastic about the game, and that's for me has made it special coming back here now. Everyone has really put a big effort into trying to get this tournament going, and you can see it. You know, everyone's helpful and they're loving the squash, and it's fantastic to see squash like that, I believe.
Let's talk about squash in the 60s when you were growing up. Where was it in the Australian scale of things? Was it fairly low profile? Was it a very active body of players?
Look, when I started off, it was just a private club setup, and it was hard as a young player playing to get into that. And I was a product, I suppose, of the public court setup. My father introduced me to the game, and I played at all the public centres. And as the years went by, so when I first started, after a while it became one of the most popular sports in the whole country because it was such a lovely sport to play, and it had a lot of things to offer for the modern person, and so it spread quite dramatically. It was a very big game. So when I suppose by the time I'd finished playing, it was a big sport in Australia.
So when did you realise, what age did you realise that actually you could make a career out of this if you worked things well? Well,
funny enough, I'd worked for 18 months.
After school?
After university.
After university, yeah.
And I decided at one stage, there was another fellow called Jonah Barrington, Englishman, who was did a lot for squash internationally in particular, and he virtually planted the seed and said, why don't you turn professional, we make some money out of it. And I thought about it, discussed it with my father, and in the end I approached Ken and said, look, I really need someone to tour with. We need to go around together if we're going to make this work, and decided to give it a go. I thought, how do you know? You never know what happens if you give it a try. We both love the game. We'd played for Australia for many years, and we thought, okay, well, maybe that's the next step, and it was a decision that I never regretted because it was, gave me such a fantastic career and life as a touring professional, and now as a coach. I've been coaching now for 30 years since then.
How hard was it to make a living? Did you have to really just watch every penny and really scrump and save to get around the countries until you built up a nice fund?
Oh, wasn't that hard.
Okay.
We managed to get enough sponsorship behind us and talk to. There was no money in the tournament, so we had to encourage the tournament organisers and federations around the world to put some money in if they want to see the best players. Because at that stage, I think our standard was getting higher. and the professional like Jonah, myself and Ken and a few of the other Egyptians and Pakistanis were by far the best players now in the world, you know. So, and I think people recognise that, particularly in the UK, and they therefore were prepared to put the funds up to watch us play, and that was very, very good. And of course, then we supplemented going around the country playing exhibition games and things. So now we could make a reasonable living at it. And I suppose in dollar terms, you know, some of the tournaments, I think, you know, and the amount of money I earned then was, you know, was pretty good for the at that time, really.
And doing something you love.
Of course, you know, that was, you know, that's the beauty of playing any sport. I mean, I was lucky to have a long career and played professional squash for 10 years, and you know, not everyone has that opportunity, and I was lucky enough to be able to do that. No, I thoroughly enjoyed the whole lot of it.
Do you think that was the golden era for world squash with yourself, and then the Khans coming later, that period where we got the most profile and everyone was familiar with the top players?
Yeah, I think we paved the way. We were the first professionals to tour and play tournament squash and things, and you know, there was only a small nucleus of it. We set up the professional body, you know, the Players Association. You know, we organised, made sure we had a ranking system, you know, prize money breakdowns and things that make a success of a sport. And so that we were pioneers in the game, really. And after us, I think when we got it established, that's when I think there was a fantastic era of players, you know, and you had the Jahangir Khan, Jansher Khan, you know, some of the top Aussies, Rodney Martin, Brett Martin, Tristan Ankara, you know, Chris Robertson and Stuart Davenport, you know, coming through. So there were some fantastic, you know, players coming through at that stage, I think, and that's what really elevated the game. And then, of course, you had some of the women coming along at the same time. We got a lot of popularity. Of course, Susan Devoy
quite successful.
Stands out here quite a lot, and quite a few of the Australians like Sarah Fitzgerald and Michelle Martin. So it became quite popular, and I think that was the golden era for squash, in my opinion, at that stage. But look, what's happened since then, you know, the game has continued to develop professionally. There's some unbelievable competition out there now. Some fantastic players from, you know, Ramya Shur, who's one of the most spectacular players you'll ever see play the game. And the game has now spread to so many different countries. You know, years ago, you know, there was England, South Africa, New Zealand, Pakistan, you know, and Egypt, the prime Australia, prime countries. But now you're finding players coming from everywhere. For example, the British Junior this year was won by a fellow from Peru. You know, so and there's people, you know, from all different parts of the world playing a very high standard of squash, and therefore, from an international perspective, you know, the game has really developed enormously, and it's nice to see. You know, you're seeing countries that you would never have thought have ever played squash, but they are now, and I think that's going to lead us ultimately to becoming an Olympic sport.
At your peak, when you were in your World Championships, your British Opens, were you front page in Australia? Did you get the recognition over there?
I think I was certainly lucky. I got quite a lot of recognition in Australia because each year I featured in, like, they had the sporting awards on, and there was, I think I got a lot of publicity, I must admit, for squash, for a sport like squash, and yes, and I think perhaps because I was so dominant for a period of time, that helped. You know, people, you know, they wanted to follow what was happening, and yeah, I still get people now who remember those days and still remember me, which is nice after all these years. But it was. No, I can't say I didn't. I did enjoy a lot of recognition. Probably Heather Mackay was one of the greats in Australian squash and world squash. I don't think she probably got the accolades that she deserves early on in her career because the women's game wasn't followed. I'm sure if she'd come another 10 years later, then I think it probably would have been for her as well. But it didn't stop her remarkable career, however.
You had this extraordinary high success rate percentage of your tournaments and games won. You're just consistent throughout the entire era. You didn't seem to have a lull. What was the secret to that, do you think?
I enjoyed playing squash. Going back to the days I played at club level, you know. I was a member of the Alma Club, and that was my highlight of the week, was playing club squash, you know, playing for a team, and you know, we discuss and dissect the games backwards, and we'd have little wagers on the thing, and you know, to see who was going to do the best on the night, and set targets for everyone. And I love that aspect of it. You know, the competitive side of the game was what I enjoyed.